Hey everybody, my name is Patrick. I'm the lead pastor here at Nuvo Church, and we just wanted to say welcome, and we're so glad that you decided to join us for our online service. Nuvo is a brand new church here in Columbus that's creating space for people to explore and integrate faith, which means that if you're a person who's curious about faith but not sure where you stand, we want this to feel like home for you. Or if you've been a follower of Jesus for a long time, and maybe you're like me, maybe you've had this box of questions about doubt and struggle, things about your faith that you've maybe never engaged. We want to be a place that's safe for you to explore those questions as well. And so we're so glad that you found Nuvo, and we hope that you enjoy your experience here today. I also want to let you know that if you're new to our church, we would love to connect with you. You can fill out the digital connect card right there in the comments section or the details section of this video. It's really quick. It allows us to get to know you a little bit, and also for you to get to know a little bit more about our church. And so we would love to invite you to fill out that connect card. And the last thing I want to let you know about is next week, January 9th, we're going to be back in person at the Exchange in Bridge Park, kicking off a brand new series called Future You. We're going to be talking about how to paint a picture of a vision for the rest of your life and where you're going, but also talk about specific steps along the way for you to get there. So we would love you to join us in person at the Exchange in Bridge Park. Now today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the narrative in Nehemiah and talking about a specific leader who did an extraordinary thing as he refocused on what was most important in his life. So we're going to be doing that message, and then immediately following that, we'll have some music from our friends at Garden MSC. They're going to be doing an incredible song to wrap up our time together today. So we hope you enjoy your experience. And with that, let's jump into the message. There's something so exciting about a brand new year, isn't there? I mean, you get on the other side of the ball dropping and you move into a brand new year, and oftentimes it feels like just a blank slate of opportunities and things that you can pursue, right? Now, if you're anything like me though, leading into New Year's, there's a little bit of like pressure that I feel, right? I mean, it's pressure to like look at the new year, and even though it might be a blank slate, or even though I might look to the new opportunities or exciting new things that I want to accomplish, or the goals or resolutions that I set for myself, there's a little bit of pressure that comes when I look around and I see the progress that other people have made. Are you anything like that? Like, do you ever have these moments of comparison where you look around and you see somebody who's made extraordinary progress seemingly in every area of their life, right? I mean, it's like all of a sudden they became the best dad, they made $70 million, and now they're Twitter famous all at the same time. Like, how do they do that, right? And there's a little bit of us where we kind of look around and like everybody's an influencer. Like, I laughed the other day. My mom posted something on social media and it got like 10 times the amount of likes of anything that I've ever gotten. My mom. I'm fine. It's fine. We're fine. It's fine. I'm not okay. But there's something about that where you compare yourself to other people, or you compare yourself to what other people are doing, and it causes you, and sometimes it causes me too, to look to the new year and want to say yes to making progress in so many different areas of my life. Right? I look to the new year and I don't focus on a few things. I end up focusing on all of the things that should be better. And then I get to the end of that year and realize that because I focused on so much, I actually didn't make a lot of progress in any one specific area at all. And if I'm really honest, that's happened to me more times than I like to admit, because there's this internal pressure to keep up and to get ahead and to make progress in so many different areas. In fact, to be really honest, when it comes to the good things in my life ends up becoming full of good things to pursue that end up becoming distractions away from the thing that I probably most need to pursue. And that changes. That changes with the season of life that I'm in. It changes with the things that are going on in my life. It changes with my struggle and my ups and downs. What I need to focus on in certain seasons sometimes shifts and changes But if I'm trying to focus on all of the things, sometimes I miss what's most important and what's right in front of me. Now, I put in my notes, I said it this way. I said that the pursuit of what's most important will always come with a temptation to be distracted by lesser things. Now, sometimes those lesser things are bad habits or hang-ups or addictions or things that you've gotten caught up in that you just need to let go of, right? There's certainly like the bad side of that, but sometimes the lesser things are just good things that are drawing you away from the best things that God has for your life. I think in this next year, God has called you into a season to do something and to shift and mold and shape in some specific way. But if you're trying to pursue all of it, I think you might miss it. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time in an area of the Bible called Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is one of my favorite areas of the Bible because it talks specifically about a leader who did something extraordinary, and he focused in on what God had for him in a specific season, and he made an extraordinary difference along the way. Now, what God had called Nehemiah to do was to take this city that had sort of been left in ruins and to do something with it, to refortify it, to reset it up to be a great city again. But to do that, one of the first big steps was that this city needed to be fortified. It needed a wall. It needed this wall that had been sort of demolished to be rebuilt so that it could be safe and lacking the vulnerability that it currently has. And it's a very specific objective and a very specific vision, and God gives Nehemiah this vision. And just like any vision, right, there's going to be distractions along the way. And distractions come for Nehemiah in the form of a lot of people, a lot of critics that come alongside of him and try to pull him away from this vision that God has for his life in this season. Now, what Nehemiah did is he shows up to the city and they begin to rebuild this wall, and he gathers people from all different sort of backgrounds, and as a whole sort of city, they say, hey, we're going to build this wall together, even though they didn't have all of the details about what it looked like, and some of these people probably had never even done anything like that before. But Nehemiah inspires them, and they show up and they start building this wall together. And just as they begin to make progress, and just as this wall begins to take shape and be formed, the distractions come deeply and loudly along the way. And so we're going to be picking up at Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 1, and here's what it says. It says, now when it was reported to Sanballat and Tobiah and to Geshem the Arab and to the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall and that no breach remained in it, although at that time I had not set up the doors and the gates. Now, these are a list of the people who would have been some of Nehemiah's critics along the way, and ultimately people who are going to be trying to distract him away from what God has for him in this season. It goes on in verse 2 and it says this, then Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me, being Nehemiah, saying, come, let us meet together in the plain of Ono. But they were planning to harm me. Now, that's what distractions do, right? I mean, they pull you away and they sort of set a trap for you to be pulled away from what you're actually focused on. And these people who were actually distractions from Nehemiah are trying to pull him away from the work that he's doing on the wall. But I love Nehemiah's response to them, and it's a phrase that I think we should all memorize and have readily available for when those moments come that distract us away from what's most important in our lives. In verse 3, here's what it says. It says, so I sent messengers back to them saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. I love that. Because what Nehemiah is saying is, I am focused on what's most important, and I am too busy to be distracted by lesser things. And then he follows it up and he says this. He said, why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? Now, I love this because it shows this resilience and this resolve and this extreme focus that Nehemiah has around what God has put him there to do during this season. And I think that's true of you. I think God has put you in this next year, in this next season of your life, to do something specific, to move in a specific direction. And you have to figure out what's most important. And then you have to say, hey, the negative things that may come, those distractions, I'm going to say no to them. But also, the good things that may also come that are simply distractions are good things, but not great things. I'm going to say no to those things so I can say with resolve and resilience that I am doing a great work and I cannot come off of this wall. Now, what happens next in the narrative is so interesting. Sanballat and his crew, they come back to Nehemiah multiple times trying to pull him away, and they make up these lies about him to discourage him, but also to discourage the people that Nehemiah is leading to rebuild this wall. And then Nehemiah responds back to them, and he says these words in verse 8. He says, then I sent them a message saying, such things as you are saying have not been done, but you are inventing them in your own mind. He says, for all of them were trying to frighten us. He's talking to the group of people around him. All of them were trying to frighten us, thinking they will become discouraged with the work, and it will not be done. Isn't that true? I mean, isn't it so easy to be pulled away in so many different directions and then look at the progress that you've made towards what's most important and almost be tempted to abandon it because you're discouraged about where you are, because you've been pulled in all of the other places? What Nehemiah is saying is that he's been tempted and they've been tempted to move towards these other distractions and be discouraged. And then Nehemiah prays this very simple but powerful prayer to outline the posture of his heart when that comes. He simply says this, but now, O God, strengthen my hands. I love that. He has this resolve about saying, I'm not coming off of this wall because I know what's most important. But then he has this powerful statement of recognizing that he needs the supernatural power of God to strengthen his hands to move forward and make sure that he's moving towards what's most important and not distracted by the lesser things. Now, I think that's true of you too. If you're going to move towards what's most important in your life, if you're going to move towards God's best in your life, you're going to need him to show up and strengthen your hands to move forward in it. I put in my notes, I said it this way. I said, what God wants to do through the vision that he has for your life is greater than your own strength can produce. Let me say that again. What God wants to do through the vision that he has for your life is greater than your own strength can produce. You need him to help you move powerfully in the direction that he's called you towards. And you need him to be able to say no to the lesser things. And I think that's a discipline. I think being able to say no to the things that are less than for what God has for you in the season is a discipline that it takes for you just to simply say no to the hang-ups, no to the habits, no to the negative things, that you move away from that. But then to be so crystal clear on where you're going that you're able to say no to good things that other people may say yes to, so that you can experience God's best in your life. Now, I want to remind you too that saying no doesn't mean that it's a forever no. Oftentimes, saying no means that you're saying no for a specific season, but you're not saying no forever. I'll give you an example of that with our family. We have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn. Like, our lives are full on in family mode with young kids. And the temptation that we have is to want to go out many nights during the week, to just program our nights where we are around people all the time, or we're doing meetings, or we're hanging out in those sorts of ways. And starting a brand new church is one of those things where you end up meeting with people a lot and you're doing things in the evenings when people are off work, right? But as a family, we had to say no. Like, there's only so many nights out of the week that we can be engaged in things that are outside of our family, because our family has to come first. And so we set up a grid to say no to X amount of nights during the week that we would be out of the house or not together. Now that's a tough thing, and not everybody understands that, and we struggle with wanting to be, 21 again and out almost every night of the week doing things. But at the end of the day, we've said yes to our family in that, and we say no to other things that oftentimes are really good things for other people, but they're just not for us in this season of our lives. Right? Now that's not a forever thing, but that's a seasonal thing that God has called us to right now. I bet those are things that you have in your life that are like that. Now, ultimately, we could say it this way, that the greatest enemy to experiencing God's best is the inability to focus on what matters the most. Let me say it one more time. The greatest enemy to experiencing God's best is the inability to focus on what matters most. And I want you to experience God's best in your life this year, which means that you're going to have to really develop that ability to say yes to what's most important and to say no to the lesser things in this season of your life. Now, I heard a version of this talk for the first time when I was a sophomore in college. Andy Stanley gave it. He's a pastor out of Atlanta, extraordinary pastor, leader, communicator. In fact, you could go listen to some of his versions of these talks. He gives it every few years. And I heard it as a sophomore, and there were all sorts of things that I was trying to wrestle through in my life, things that I wanted to say yes to, and all sorts of opportunities that I wanted to be engaged in and being a part of. And I'll never forget, I heard this talk, and it helped bring so much clarity to my decision making over the course of that next year, and then ultimately over the years following that. And he gave 3 questions that I wanted to share with you that I think are really important in sort of helping yourself navigate what this next season might look like for you. The first question is this: what obstacles need to be removed, right? What obstacles need to be removed from where you currently are to the place that you're going so that you can say yes to what's most important? I want you to think about that when it comes to your job or your career. I want you to think about that when it comes to your family. Like, what natural obstacles are in the way of you moving towards where you most need to be when it comes to your family? I want you to think about that when it comes to your friendships and your relationships. What obstacles are in the way of you moving quickly to where you need to go and in the direction that God's called you to be in? So what obstacles are in the way? The second question is this: what do you need to eliminate to simplify? Now, what I mean by that is you need to be able to make quick decisions around where you're going and what you're doing, right? So I gave the example of our family being able to say no to X amount of nights during the week. And that's an easy thing because we've processed that on the front end. So for you, like, where do you need to simplify in your life so that you can make quick decisions on yeses and nos when things come up or opportunities come up or even good things that come up, but they may not be the best thing, right? Think about that when it comes to your family. Like, what do you need to quickly say no to so that you can say yes to being together or experiencing more intimacy with your spouse or experiencing a deeper level of connection with your kids? How do you craft that system or grid in your own life? How do you simplify that process of decision making so that you can quickly say yes or no to good things that might come along the way? And then the third thing is this: who do you need to remove from your inner circle? Now, this is a really tough thing to answer, and it's always emotional and it's always difficult. But the truth is, the people that are in your inner circle will shape the direction that you go. And so when you get clear on where you're going, you also have to get clear on the fact that there are some people that need to not be removed from your life, but just be removed from the most influential place in your life. They need to be removed from that inner circle because they're moving in a direction that you're not moving in, or they're pulling you in directions that you don't need to go in. Now, you've given this advice before, especially if you have teenagers or kids, but it's harder for us to sort of take our own advice as adults. The question for you remains: who needs to be removed from your inner circle so that you can more passionately and swiftly move in the direction that God has called you to in this season? Who needs to be removed from that inner circle, and also who needs to be in that inner circle to help move you in the direction that God has called you to go? Now, I said this earlier, I want to say it one more time. The greatest enemy to experiencing God's best is the inability to focus on what matters most. And so my question for you is, how does this apply to your life? How do you move in the direction of saying no to good things, no to the negative things, so that you can focus on what matters most in your life in this season. Now, with that said, I want to challenge you really to do one thing over the course of the next month. Now, maybe you should do it for many months, or maybe you should do it for the rest of the year, or maybe you're going to do it daily for a long period of time. But this challenge that I have for you is whenever you process your calendar, whenever you start your day, or whenever you get up and you kind of get moving and you're moving through your day, I want you to say these two things. I want you to say out loud, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. And then secondly, I want you to pray this simple prayer. God, strengthen my hands. I want you to pray that God gives you the resolve to move in the direction of what matters most and what's most important in your life. And then I want you to say, so that you get in the habit of saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Now, I gave this message several years ago, and I gave it in an environment where there was a lot of guys who were in young families, who had young kids like we do now. And I'll never forget, there was a man in the audience who was a dad of young kids, and after the talk, he came up to me and he told me, he said, I'm not experiencing intimacy with my wife. Like, we're not close. I'm struggling at home to be present with my kids. I miss out on a lot of the big moments. And he was a pilot who was in a job where he would have a long commute to where he was going. And then even from there, he had another commute on top of it. And all of that just kind of wrapped into his current job, just made it really impossible for him to be present at home in the way that he wanted to be. And so he told me, he said, what I need to focus on and what's most important this year is my family, and I got to figure that out. Now, I didn't look at him and say, you need to quit your job, because this isn't true of every pilot, and this is a unique thing that he was trying to process through. And I'll never forget looking at him, and I challenged him in the way that I just challenged you, to say that out loud every day. I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. And then to pray this prayer consistently. God, strengthen my hands, and ultimately invite God to supernaturally get involved in the direction that he's moving you to. And I challenged him in those things. And a few months later, he came back up to me, and I'll never forget it. He comes back up to me, and he's elated, and he's emotional. And he tells me a story of how God had worked it out for him to move companies. And in the move to a different company, it eliminated a lot of his commute. It opened up so much more time for him to be present at home. And he even got a raise on top of that. Now, that's one of those stories that feels like there's a bow on top and it's easy and it's just kind of like, oh, it worked out. And it did for him. God did extraordinary things. But I don't think he would have seen those opportunities if he wasn't focused on what mattered most in his life, and if he hadn't have been inviting God to be a part of those circumstances. Now, I'll tell you, most of the time it's going to require sacrifice on your part. It's going to require extreme focus and intensity on your part. It's going to require you to be disciplined to say no to the negative things, and oftentimes no to things that you could do, and that other people could do, and that other people should do. And sometimes you're going to feel FOMO. But I promise you this, that when you decide to pursue what God has placed in front of you as the most important thing, I promise you, you're never going to regret that. And even though you might say no to something for a season, it doesn't mean it's forever. It means that it's no for now. But in the midst of all of that, God might do something so extraordinary through the area that you're focused on that it could change your life forever. And that's my prayer for you in this next year. When you're tempted to look around or compare yourself, or you're experiencing FOMO because you said no to something that's good but not the best thing, what I pray for you is that God moves so powerfully through your life that you tell a story of his faithfulness on the other side of it, and how he moved through you as you focused on his best in this year. May we all be able to tell that story as we move into another year, and we be able to tell stories of God's faithfulness as we focused on what he's called us to focus on in this season of our lives.
Shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your families, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children.
May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you, he is with you in the morning, in the evening, and you're coming and you're going, and you're weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, he is for you, he is for you.
And
Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace.
Thank you so much for joining us for our service today. We hope you had a great time. Again, if you're new to our church, we would love to invite you to fill out that Connect card, that digital Connect card in the details section or the comments section of this video. We would love to connect with you, hear a little bit more of your story, and also answer any questions that you have about our church. So you can fill out that digital Connect card right there with that link. And I also want to remind you that this coming Sunday, January 9th, we're going to be back in person at the Exchange in Bridge Park. We're going to be kicking off a brand new series called Future You, where we talk about the direction that your life is headed and all the steps that you're going to take to get there. We would love for you to join us for Future You beginning this coming Sunday. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in person at the Exchange this coming week.